Okay, everyone, thank you for your patience. Now we'd like to begin the panel discussion. This conversation will focus on life experiences, relationships, support systems, and how those things can evolve over time. And we're incredibly grateful to our panelists for sharing their experiences and perspectives with us tonight. So please join me in welcoming our panelists.
All right, that is a cue for me to start. I'm deeply honored and grateful to see all of you here. Thank you for coming. This means the world to me. Growing up, there was no one that looked like me. I was the only kid with CP in my school, so seeing so many faces and so many people that look like me makes me filled with joy. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and we hope you enjoy this wonderful event. And before I start, I do want to say thank you to Emma and Booma and all the lovely volunteers that helped put this amazing event together. I know that this takes this is one day, but this takes months of preparation. So thank you to them for making this possible, because when I was growing up, my mother did not have this in her community. So this means the world to me to be able to be part of it. So thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy it. I will start introducing our panelists, and I will introduce myself last. So I'll start with Diane. Diane is to my left here. Diane is actually very nervous, and so are we, all of us. But Diane is 63 years old, living with cerebral palsy. She completed her bachelor's in social work from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. She has 36 years of experience as a social worker supporting adults and youth with disabilities. She currently works part-time at Park Quad as a youth and family specialist. I don't know, can you all hear me correctly? Good? We're good? All right. She is currently transitioning to retirement to enjoy her hobbies and interests, such as traveling, exercising, and tandem bike riding with her husband, swimming, anything outdoors, all with a passion to share a can-do attitude to inspire others with disabilities. Awesome for you, Diane. Enjoy your retirement. And I must continue. Diane is happily married to her husband, Mark. Diane and Mark will be celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary this November. As a couple, they enjoy traveling, riding their tandem bike, and shopping. Mark and Diane build on their strengths by having equal tasks, such as Mark is an excellent cook, and Diane enjoys cleaning their home and doing the laundry. Her support system is a small core: Diane's husband, her older sister, and her best friend of 40 years. Diane can do most tasks independently. However, with ask for additional assistance from her older sister, Debbie, or her best friend, Lisa, especially when dealing with doctor visits to ensure that new doctors understand her speech. So thank you, Diane. Okay, I'm receiving instruction. I will be further from the mic. Okay, and to my right, yes, to my right, I have Terry. Terry's 66 years old. In the beginning, her parents couldn't face that something was wrong with her. At age 3, she was diagnosed with CP, and she had her first surgery that included stretching her tendons and muscles. She wore casts at night that kept her from curling up her legs. Since then, she's had numerous surgeries on both sides of her legs and feet. She wore metal bar braces strapped to her waist and legs, then a flat bar that went into her heels, the heels of her shoes. At 12 years old, she had experimental surgery and was told she may never walk again. It took her about a year to learn how to walk. Her support comes from her parents, her sister, her husband, Chuck, who's here. I just want to give him a shout out. Her kids and their grandkids. The grandkids used to say, "Grandma, heel to toe, heel to toe." That's awesome advice. As she always had a habit of tripping over her own 2 feet. Terry loves to sew by hand, garden, and swim in the lake. She always wears a life jacket just in case her legs start to cramp. She loves going on bike rides, but it's always difficult because she has to be able to get into the water and get back into the boat. She can do it all herself sometimes, but other times she's not afraid to ask for help. And lastly, Terry was always allowed to try new things, and even if she couldn't do it, at least she tried. Terry has overcome many obstacles in her life. Her strength and determination does not let her surrender to her disability. When she falls, she gets back up, and she continues to keep moving forward. Thank you, Kelly. Now to my far right, Kelly. Kelly is a 46-year-old living with CP and other health issues. She is a proud alumnus of the University of Missouri Columbus, where she earned her bachelor's degree in human development and family studies in 2004. She began her career as a certified child life specialist at St. Louis Children's Hospital and from 2005 to 2023. Kelly graduated with a master's in social work from Washington University in St. Louis in 2009. She spent 12 years working full-time as a counselor for patients receiving multidisciplinary therapy services after hospital stays for various reasons. In the future, she plans to open a private practice where she still will provide therapy to anyone who has been touched by disability, chronic illness, or any curveballs life can throw our way. And I think that future is very soon because we're just talking about that in our table. Kelly's support system is mainly her sister, Ryan, who's also her husband, I believe, her partner, and friends, caregivers, and she compensates to assist her at various times. And lastly, Ryan, who is her partner. Ryan Phillips is 35 years old, living with CP. Ryan is supported by his dad and stepmom in countless ways. In addition to his life partner, Kelly, and caregivers, some of his support is provided by Medicaid waiver through the state of Missouri. Ryan graduated from Ballmeyer High School in Illinois, and in 2009 went on to take classes on Southern University of Illinois, Carbondale. Go Slukies? Did I say that right? I'm so sorry. Ryan enjoys working out at the Stephen Orthwin Gym at Paraquad. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. He also volunteers at the Missouri History Museum. His last and most favorite time is spent doing whatever is in the agenda if Kelly is there. And now I'm going to take a breath. And I am Azucena Garcia. I'm actually not from Missouri. I'm from California. I'm 38 years old. I was diagnosed with spastic diplegia at the age of 2. Since then, I've had 20 surgeries, but 18 of them being orthopedic. When I was born, I was 2 pounds, and then the next day I was 1 pound. And so they told my mom, don't get too attached to her because she most likely will die. But hey, here I am 38 years later. And I went on to study at the University of California, San Diego being my hometown because I'm from California. Go Tritons. I forget. I have a dual bachelor's degree in communication and political science. And growing up, I grew up in the hospital at the Rady Children's Hospital. And I saw my life pass me by a lot of the time between therapy, of speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, all sorts of therapies. And all I wanted to do was travel. And since I turned 20, I've been to 27 countries around the world so far. Yeah. And lastly, I have a podcast called Parálisis Cerebral Respuestas in Spanish because my mother is a native Spanish speaker. She did not speak English when she first received my diagnosis, which made it very hard for her to navigate the healthcare system. So in honor of her, I decided 2 years ago to create this podcast where I interview doctors in Spanish primarily, to try to get information to our Hispanic Latino community. So that is a little bit about me. If I'm a native Spanish speaker, so I tumble on my words in English, but if anyone wants to stop me and chat about anything, please feel free after this. So I'm deeply honored, and we're gonna go ahead and start, because I know Emma is like, you need to start now. Okay, so let's see, I have the questions in my phone. And here they are. Okay, so since except for myself, I'm not married. I do not have children. All of our other panelists are married. Most of them, I know you have children. So that is one of the first questions I will ask them, because it's so important to ask questions about relationships and adulthood and intimacy and all these things that I know growing up I didn't hear from my own parents. So the first question, and I'll start with you, Diane, is what is the story of you and your partner, Mark?
Well, I was at the at a bar with my girlfriend. I used to love to dance. I noticed every chick guy at the pool table shooting pool. So my other friend saw me checking him out, and he introduced me to Mark. And at the time, I was holding a bottle of beer, and I was staring at the. Oh, by the way, I am not drunk. I have cerebral palsy, and Mark, it didn't face him at all. And he did. They sit down and talk some more. Well, by the time the night was over, he asked me to go for breakfast with him. So we went to breakfast, and then we laughed. And he called me later that day and do you want to meet for dinner? And I said, okay. So he came and met me at Applebee's. He bought me a darling red roses. I knew I met my prince. And I said, oh wow. So, and when we sit there, we had not been apart almost a years. We figure out things together. He loved me for me, not for the way I talk or the way I move. We didn't figure it out. So that is our story.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. Clearly worked out. He's definitely your prince. You've been together 30 years. To 30 more, Diane. Now I'm going to go to you, Terry, who your prince is right in front of me. How did you meet? And here's the mic.
Well, I cashed his paychecks and knew a friend that went to the same bar that he goes to. We met. We were friends for a couple of years. And then in 93, we moved in together. And I don't know how to say this. All right. I just went numb.
That's okay.
I met him at the bar and we moved in together. We now have been together 33 years. Out of that, we'll be married 27. He's very helpful. He is my Prince Charming because before I went to my walker or braces, I was able to walk alone. And I would say when 2020 happened, he's been picking me up off the floor. Then he takes the laundry downstairs for me and brings them up folded. He's just been my helper. My mother said when she finally met him, she said, I met my match.
That's wonderful.
And I did because he's right there with me all the way.
Thank you. All right, we go to Kelly.
Let's see, what year was that?
20. Well, how far do you want to go back?
Oh, okay. Never mind. This is why I'm answering this question. So Ryan and I happened to meet because I was actually coming home from a surgery that I had in 2013, and I was on medical leave from my job, and Ryan had recently moved into the same apartment building, and he was going down the hall. I don't know if he was randomly knocking on doors or if he was stalking the cute girls, but he knocked on my door.
I was trying to meet people.
Yes. Okay. He was trying to meet people. And he knocked on my door. I don't know what possessed me to open it, but I opened it, and I think our first conversation lasted 3 hours over tons of different topics. And then we've been in we still live in that same apartment building. I've moved 2 times since that we met in that same building, partly because that building is built for accessibility, so we've stayed there. But a couple of years ago, when I moved for the last time, I happened to move right across the hall from Ryan. And at that point, we began to be more than friends, I would say.
Yes.
And the short story is we had a commitment ceremony at our church because Ryan receives support through a Medicaid waiver. And in Missouri, in Missouri that I know of, if we were to get legally married and our incomes would be tied together, he would have been knocked off all of his support. So I told him that I would never do anything to hurt him, and that would clearly, if you can't get out of bed, that's going to definitely cause some problems with your quality of life. So we explained that to our pastors, and they agreed that the separation of church and state is there for a reason. And so we had a commitment ceremony where we got to do all the wedding planning and got to get dressed up fancy the way I wanted it to be, right?
Of course.
And then we had our commitment ceremony. It'll be 2 years ago on December 20th.
Yes.
So, and yeah.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for saying that. Before we had this panel right now, and I promise, the 3 of us unfortunately, Kelly and Ryan couldn't join us, but we had a dry run, right, to help us prepare and to kind of get ready for this because this is a big deal for us. And the topics being spoken about are so personal. I am so happy to have met all of them. In particular, Diana and Terry, when we had our dry run, because I am not married. I do not have children, but it is something that I wish to have. And one of the things that I struggle with is finding someone who will take the time to get to know me. Because I do have a lot of surgeries and they're big scars. And in this society that we live in, it's sort of, if we have scars, we're supposed to hide them. You know, they sell us creams to make scars disappear. And so every time I see myself naked in the mirror, it's a constant reminder of sort of the journey I've been through, and I'm very proud of it. But there is that fear that I think about, like, am I ever going to find my person? Am I ever going to find someone? I do have faith that I will find someone, and something that both of them did not share is that they also had the same fears, right? Because as women with disabilities, we get looked over, we get bypassed, we get overseen, right? By friends, by anyone around us. And so I also wanted to share this part of my story because it's also important. I'm so grateful and so happy that the three of you are married. I'm still not there. I do hope to find someone, but it is a reality of being a woman with a disability, regardless of the disability, right? So yeah, this is what this panel is for, right? To get to know what it is to live with CP. And talking about CP, one of the biggest things that we deal with is, as we age, what is independence going to look for us, right? And I think as parents, you're constantly thinking, how is my child going to roam or navigate the world, right, with a disability? So that is my next question. Diane, what does what does independence look like for you as an adult with CP?
For independence, me having control over my life. I may not be able to do everything on my own, but I want to stay in control of decisions and care that affect me. I would like to say be independent in knowing when to ask for help. Don't do everything for me. Let me tell you what I need done on my behalf.
Thank you so much, Diane. That is so powerful. Do not assume, first ask. For you, Terry, what does independence look like for you as an adult with CP?
Mine is, my parents always pushed me to try things. With my disability, I pushed myself. I never wore braces except for when I was little, 12 years old. Now I'm in braces again. I've been in several different kinds, and I'm now using a walker because I was falling all the time. When COVID hit, I couldn't go to the gym anymore, so my muscles got weak. But they'll tell you that CP, you can't bring those muscles back. I'm here to say, if you work hard enough with the child, that child, I'm not going to say will walk, but it would help. I am now, like I said, I'm using a walker. I use it all the time now. My strength is I get up every morning, I put my braces on, I go to the gym, I work out, and I will put my walker back in my car. I will not ask for help unless I can't do it.
Thank you, Terry. Next, going on with you, Kelly.
So for me, I kind of, I guess, grew up similarly. My parents were like, don't ask for help all the time because there may not be someone there to help you, or they may get tired of you asking for help. So you should, it was kind of the I in independence was you to do it only. And I having to learn, as Ryan will tell you, as I get older, that for me, walking was energy consuming. And so even though that was like the goal for my entire childhood was walk, 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 once I got to college or even high school, it was either walk or learn because I couldn't do both, right? So I think being able to ask the questions and know yourself well enough to be able to say, um, what is independence? And as a good friend of all, at least three of us up here know Chris Worth, he would tell you that independence is also interdependence, right? So there are people around that are willing to help if you just ask. And the world can be a hard place to live in, but it can also be a pretty amazing place if you don't cut yourself off from people that are willing to help you. And I'm still learning that lesson that asking for help is not a bad thing. So
Thank you, my dear. Now passing on to you, Ryan. What does independence to you as an adult with CP mean?
I would say similarly to Diane. I would say there are a lot of things that I may not be able to do, but as long as I have control of my decisions and what to do with my own life and my body, then that is ideal for me.
Thank you. That is very powerful. As for me, I feel like there's such a big importance being put into independence, but in reality, for me, we're all interdependent on everything. We depend on public transportation. We depend on cars to get. So we depend on each other. So it's not so much about independence. It's about interdependence. And what I've had to learn is that asking for help is not a burden. We are not a burden to anyone. We all have something to contribute. We all have something to give back. And we all need help with something, regardless if it's visible, our need is visible or invisible. We all have something. And if we are willing to ask for help and be vulnerable, then that will take us a long way. I know I travel a lot by myself. It's a huge challenge to travel as a woman with a disability. I fall all the time. My mom says I spend more time on the floor than actually walking, and it's true. But people have been so kind in all these places that I've been to that they're willing, they give me a hand, I hold on to them, and guess what? That starts a conversation. And so it's wonderful. So for me, it's not about independence, it's interdependence in each other. So that's my point of view. And the last question, oh my God, this has been so fast. And actually the most personal question, I would say. What do you wish that your caregivers or parents had discussed with you about dating and relationships? And I'll start again with Diane.
I wish that my parents were more open with about relationship and dating. They never told me anything. I made a lot of stupid mistakes this because I did not know. My parents always assumed that I would never date much less get married. That was to do. I first they could see me as a person, not as the little baby who was hopeless. But I wish they could have dreamed that I could be married and that I could have relationships. Did I do everything right? No, but that's how you learn.
That is how you learned, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Diane. Terry, what is something you wish
I wish my parents would have told me or asked me, allowed me to go to sex education classes. Because my parents, my mother never told me anything about sex. So when it came time, I had a few mishaps of husband. Um, and I've had to learn because my legs don't open up like other women's legs do. I had to learn a different way to have sex. Let me tell you, I had two good children. The I lost one. I had a boy. Then the girl was an oops, but the doctor said no more because the fact is my hips would have gone out completely. I we have I have since my husband and I we work around it and we've been very successful. No kids. My first two kids, my kids came from the first husband. But I wish my parents would have said something. That way I would have known what my life was going to be with my CP.
I kind of have the well, not completely opposite. My mom was an OBGYN nurse when I was born. So I saw way too much, way too soon about all topics. But it was never related to, she never applied that to me as her daughter with CP. It was always like, oh, that's, I go to work, I teach people how to have babies and, tell them this is how they got here, even if they didn't know how they got pregnant at the time, kind of thing. But she never really applied that to my future and and she kind of thought well, this is looking back on it now, she kind of thought it was cute when I dated, which is really upsetting now because I'm like, that's not cute. That's like teenagehood, young adulthood, like that's part of life, right? But because she didn't prepare me, I had this like Prince Charming is only an able-bodied person that could pick me up when I fell. And as he is laughing now, because the joke's on me, right? Uh, because even though Ryan cannot pick me up when I fall, um, he is very much a supporter in all kinds of other ways that I never dreamed would be possible, right? And so I guess I wish that people could think outside the box a little bit and not only just educate us equally in general, right? But also on all topics, but especially relationships, intimacy, friendships, because I hope that most of your children don't live with you until whatever happens. Like, and that you plan, and if they have more complex medical needs, plan ahead of time because you're not, don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but you're not, your children are supposed to outlive you. So plan for that. Um, I think we shocked my mom I mean, that we got married and she got to dress up and thought it was her day, but whatever. Uh, but it's just all those things that I wish people were just more open about and would talk about. So that's why I love that we have this panel, because if they weren't going to talk to us about it, I will shout it from the mountaintops to whoever needs to hear it. Even if you don't feel comfortable talking to your kids about it, I'm starting a private practice soon. Your kids can come to me. You can come to me. I mean, so.
You're already making clients.
I'm plugging. That's probably not ethical. I don't know. Okay, anyway.
Ryan.
Well, and like they've all said, nobody tells you as a disabled person what relationships are supposed to be like, because it isn't out there. It isn't on TV and movies. You don't see it. And as far as intimacy goes, it's different for everybody, based on what they can or can do.
But we figure it out.
Yeah, you figure it out. Yeah, yes, exactly. So,
That's all, Ryan? No more?
yep.
All right. I love that Ryan is like to the point.
Yep.
For me, like we've all mentioned, my mom comes from a very, and I must say my parents are immigrants from Mexico, comes from a very traditional sort of Mexican family, patriarchal, and sex was total taboo, completely. Sex was not to be spoken about, and she never mentioned anything about it, and I didn't know anything about it until I turned 19, and I thought, okay, I have to learn about sex because I have needs. And clearly my parents, my mom, because my father died when I was 2, they're not, nobody in my family is going to talk about it. And so I took a sex ed class and I started learning about sex in college. And I was very embarrassed because I thought the pill was actually the blue pill, but the blue pill is something else.
Yeah.
So, I wish she would have been more open because, we all have physical needs, all of us, regardless of ability or disability, and it shouldn't be a taboo, right? Although I'm not married, I've had partners and they've been able-bodied, and it's been a topic that we've had to discuss from the very beginning because they're very curious. They're like, okay, so how are we going to do this? What can you do? And at that point, you just have to be very open and see what works for you and what doesn't. And it's in that regard, they've been very understanding and very supportive. So I do have to thank them for that. But yeah, I think my number one thing is, and my advice, and something I really do hope that all of you take away from this is, do talk about sex with your kids and relationships and tell them about boundaries. It's so important to talk about these things. The earlier, the better. Because like I said, we all have needs and sex is just one of them. So with that, I think we go into our Q&A session. So feel free to ask us anything. And thank you. See a hand there?
How you doing? What is a good age to start talking about sex if your child is nonverbal?
Okay. Any advice from
the child development perspective, if your child is, I mean, I would say, start talking about how their body moves, or do you feel this if they can do a yes, no, if you can, I mean, if there's like, that's going to sound really wrong, if there's like different ways that they communicate, make sure that they know this is okay, this is not okay. Like what kinds to not again, geez, I'm taking all the bad news curves here, but we also, a lot of people with disabilities can be very vulnerable and be taken advantage of. And so we want to be careful about that as well. And so being able to find ways that your child can, whether it's eye gaze, whatever it is, can make their voice heard or their wants and needs heard or understood is really, really important. And like we said, choice and control is really important. No, whether they have a voice, even if they're nonverbal. So find a way to bring that communication out in them or work with speech therapist or somebody because you guys are going to be probably integral as caregivers and parents, but also you may not be the only ones that get through to them. So make connections in these communities, like these places, like these evenings, like this, and stuff like that.
That's a great question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So what advice would you give to us parents whose kids are little and will struggle with not being able to keep up with their peers at recess or at gatherings where there's kids their age that can run around a backyard and climb a swing set independently, and that, your child can't do that without help? How would you just kind of like suggest we help our kids with that?
Well, when I was a child, I had braces on. Um, I still was able to get on the swing sets. Couldn't get on the ladder because it was kind of hard. But eventually, I was able because I kept trying. We had one in our backyard, which my dad built a tree house from the ladder and a ramp up to the tree house. So that made me have to learn how to get up the ladder. Um, as far as maneuvering, I couldn't run either on the gym. I couldn't do gym at all. And recess I didn't get to do because I couldn't keep up with the other kids. But that didn't mean that I didn't have my friends that stayed around and we did something else, like tetherball or where we bounced the ball back and forth on the board. So it can be done. You just got to work with the child.
You. And I'll add to that. Who's the one that asked the question? For me, and I'll be completely honest, it's very funny. People say you have a podcast, you've traveled everywhere, you do all these things. And I struggled so much with my self image throughout the years, and I'm 38. Um, when I was growing up, most of the time I used a wheelchair to get by, and I loved it. But that also meant that my peers ostracized me, right? That no one wanted to. I was bullied. No one wanted to be my friend. I was the one last picked for PE class. I was constantly overlooked, and in my case, I would always sit in my wheelchair and wonder, like, what is it about my brain that is not sending the signals proper to my legs that I cannot walk like the other kids, right? What is it? And I struggled a lot with that. I can't say I had friends, I can't say I had a support system, because I didn't. But what I will say that I wish I had now as an adult is I wish I had someone who told me to accept myself and to hug myself and to accept myself for who I am. And to say, Azucena, you are beautiful the way you are. Everyone is different. And in the beauty of our world is the world is beautiful because we are diverse and we all have something to contribute. So I wish my mom didn't. She tried the best she could, but she didn't do it. So I had no self-confidence. I had no one to tell me I could do things. I mean, I love to read and I love to write short stories, but no one read my stories. No one said, you're a brilliant writer. You're a brilliant painter. And that is so important. So as a parent, I would advise, and I'm not a parent, so I can only speak from my CP experience. What I wish my mother had done is to teach me to accept myself and to embrace me for all the beauty that I have. And your child will find his or her support system. And along the way, that will happen, whether it's right now as a child or as an adult. But I think the most important thing for me, at least, was to have someone to tell me, you are beautiful and you have so much to give to the world. So I wish I had that, and that is my advice I give you.
Can I add when I was a kid, the kids played with me, but they learned how to adapt to my needs. We worked it out. However, when the kids turned 12, 13, it wasn't cool to be without it.
Yeah.
So it was a very lonely time where I was a teenager because those kids that were my friends when we were little did not want that to be aware. And I cried a lot and then what wrong with me? But no, it made me tough because my parents said, look inside. And my parents encouraged me to do whatever I want. And that really about other people. And it was a lonely time. But I grew up and no girl that kind of show me are my friends today because we grew up.
Any more questions?
I know you had mentioned that when you were younger, you felt like you were watching your life kind of go away from you. I guess because you were in the hospital a lot. This kind of pertains to that, and maybe just going through therapy. Do you, as a mom of a kid with CP, my goal is to do therapy all of the time. And some people say, just make sure you remember you're her mom and, she doesn't need to do it maybe every day. But do you maybe regret doing all of the surgeries, going through all the therapy, or now that you are as successful as you are? And yeah, do you kind of get my question there? Like, yeah.
What is your name?
Kathy.
Kathy, thank you for that question. That is deeply, deeply personal. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. I'm going to be very emotional. So sorry, everyone, if I haven't already. I feel like I've cried so much. There's no Kleenex. So next year, I want Kleenex here.
If you don't feel comfortable answering too,
No, please. Yes, I will answer because it's so important. Who's aware of the F words? The F words, besides the famous F word, but the F words is like a framework where when you go to a session or you go to a therapy session, doctors are encouraged to ask or to take into consideration family, friends, fun, fitness, and another one that I'm missing. It's 5 of them, right? That didn't exist when I was growing up. It did not. And you add the layer, oh, perfect, great. And there's a lot of them, so I can cry my heart out. That did not exist when I grew up. And add to that the layer that my mom did not speak English, right? Which she felt like she was invisible to the doctors. She only spoke Spanish. So the doctors told her what was going to happen to me, right? So I had all these surgeries. And yes, I spent 18 years of my life in the hospital. I had what is considered the birthday syndrome. So every other year I had a surgery, basically. And I am very grateful for every therapy session that I've had, for every surgery. However, do I regret it? Yes, absolutely. Because I did not have a childhood. Because no one asked me, what do you want to do? What are your goals? Everyone spoke, not even to my mom. The doctors spoke amongst themselves. No one even, when my orthopedic surgeon, who is brilliant, would see me, he would see degrees of an angle of legs. And he would speak in technical language. He wouldn't speak to a child. So he never saw a child when he saw me, right? And he's brilliant, and I'm very grateful to him. However, I do feel that now you have the power, and I understand your perspective, because as parents, I feel like you want to do everything you can to help your child be the best you can, because the goal of this society seems to be for people to walk. That if you can walk and you can talk, you have value. And it's okay if we don't walk. Like whenever I fall, which is very often because walking is not my native language, people want to quickly pick me up. And guess what? That's okay if I'm on the floor. So I understand that you as a parent feel the need to help your child as much as you can, but sometimes therapy is not the response. Sometimes ask, how old is your child, if I may ask?
She's only 4.
She's only 4. Okay, as she grows, she probably does already have an opinion, but as she grows up,
Yep, she does.
yeah, ask her, how do you feel about having therapy? How does this make you feel? Right? Ask her, involve her in the process, and make sure the doctors involve her in the process, and don't only speak to you, but also speak to her, right? Because she has a voice. So I will say that therapy isn't always the best option. It is if the child or the adult wants to do it, but it's up to them. Don't assume that it is. I think as parents, I know my mom did. She carried this sort of guilt that she didn't do enough, or that she wasn't doing enough. And so she was signing me up for as much as she could. But guess what? I was exhausted. I was tired. I wanted to be a child. And I wanted to play. And what ended up happening is that my life, my days in the hospital all ended up looking the same. Therapy sessions, paperwork, always asking the same questions, endless appointments. I grew tired. So when I turned 20, and sorry for my language, this is definitely an F word. I said, fuck this. I'm getting away from the medical system. I'm an adult. I will decide now. And guess what? I disappeared for 10 years and I did my own thing. I still was with pain. I still dealt with a lot of things, but I started to live. And one of the quotes, when doctors, and I want you, if there's anything I want you to take away from this, is when doctors give you these papers of therapies and things your child should do, ask them, how much time of my life and my child's life is all these therapy sessions and appointments going to take? Did you take that into consideration? And guess what? They probably didn't. Because my guess is most of you have to go to different multidisciplinary people. You have to go to neurologists, you have to go to therapists, and they don't communicate amongst each other. So you don't know the time it takes to be in a hospital setting. And guess what? That is toxic for the child and for you. I know for my mom, she had to pick between me and my brother. And guess what? My brother grew up by himself. Someone else had to take him to soccer practice. because doctors did not take into consideration the amount of time it takes for a child and their family to be in the hospital setting. So take that into consideration, because sometimes therapy isn't the answer. Sometimes they want to be with their friends. And if there's one thing I will say is, I recently read this by a Mexican poet that says, all my life, I had a voice whisper in my ear, live, live, live. It was death. Our time in this world is very limited. And I think all of us should live the best way we can. So make sure that you take into consideration the opinions of your children, of your loved ones, of anyone, of your siblings, of those that you care for, because that's so important.
Can I add to my parents have me in therapy from the age of 21 years old. However, in the school year, I had school and therapy.
Yep.
But during the summer, we didn't have therapy. However, we were in the pool of riding a bicycle or doing something fun to make me move. Just think about that. There is a time for everything, but there is time for fun with your child. You can go to the pool and they can move over in the water. That is PT. Give them a bicycle. That is PT. Help them to learn how to read. That is speech therapy. Teach them to cook. That is OT. You get your therapy in a fun way.
All right, can we give Azu? Oh, go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, do you get aggravated when your doctors quit and just move on to another type of job or something? Because her doctors, it seems like she finally gets one she likes, and then they leave. They don't even tell her, so she's got to
Yeah.
find another doctor.
I,
Especially when her medicine's getting low, you know.
yeah, I've been changed with my CP doctor as an adult. And I go to physical therapy once a month just to make sure that I'm keeping up with my stretches. Because if I don't go, I slack, then it hurts myself. But I have changed 4 doctors with my CP at WashU. Now they're telling me, and my nurse practitioners who gives me my Botox shots, I get the shots in between my legs and then on the back of my muscles and tendons to help loosen everything up. It doesn't do a lot. But, anyways, I was told from Humana that my doctor cannot prescribe me 2 different medications. It's got to come by a doctor. Well, I don't see a doctor anymore. I see a nurse practitioner. So who are they going to go from? So you need to always keep up with the pharmacies, your medication for your child. It's you have to keep up with it.
And teach them how to self-advocate too, because ultimately, again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, you're not going to be around all the time, all the way. Nobody ever knows when, something's going to happen, or they might be brilliant and go off to some great school, and they're in a different part of the world, and you're not right around the corner to fix the problem.
Yep.
So self-advocacy is a big skill. And if it means a doctor has to sit there and listen or watch a communication device while your child or young adult spells out what their questions are, guess what? They can sit and listen.
Nurse practitioners will listen.
Well, don't get me started. I mean, yes, they will, but there's problems there too.
All right, everyone. Can you give Azucena and all of our panelists another round of applause?